Elias Estratagoulias woke up on Thursday, February 27, 2026, completely unaware that a video captured by his Ring camera 27 days earlier would soon emerge as the most significant public lead in the investigation surrounding the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. He remained unaware because no one from the Pima County Sheriff's Department had informed him that the recording might be important. He also had no idea because no agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation had come to his home to ask about it. In fact, throughout 27 days of what had become one of the most visible investigations in the United States, an operation involving approximately 200 personnel, more than 23,000 calls processed, helicopters flying repeatedly over the neighborhood, and detectives combing through every inch of Nancy's property on North Camino Escalante. No one had walked the 2.5 miles separating his house from the crime scene to ask what his camera had captured during the early hours of February 1st. For nearly a month, no one asked. That changed only when reporters from Fox News Digital arrived at his door. When Elias and Daniel Estratagoulias opened that door to reporter Adam Shaw, they did not present an empty memory card or a camera that had failed to record anything. Instead, they revealed a Ring camera that had continuously documented the street outside their home from midnight on January 31st until 6 o'clock in the morning on February 1st. Those hours overlap precisely with the time frame in which Nancy Guthrie was taken from her bed in the darkness of the Arizona desert. The footage recorded 12 separate vehicles passing along Camino Royale, a back route that allows vehicles to leave the neighborhood without passing through major intersections in Tucson. The road has no traffic lights, no surveillance cameras, no police checkpoints, and almost no witnesses during those early morning hours. Among the 12 vehicles captured during that 6-hour window lies a moment that causes the entire investigation to pause. At approximately 2:30 in the morning, several vehicles were recorded traveling along Camino Royale during the same time period when authorities say Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker stopped syncing with her iPhone. The last recorded digital signal from her phone occurred at 2:28. 2 minutes later at 2:30, the Estratagoulias Ring camera captured traffic moving along the back route. Those 2 minutes, between Nancy's final digital signal and the vehicles appearing on the street, represent a small window of time that investigators had not publicly connected to any evidence collected by the Sheriff's Department. Daniel Estratagoulias did not attempt to dramatize the situation when he explained to the Fox News Digital reporter what had happened. Instead, he spoke with the calm tone of someone who had spent weeks trying to understand something that still did not fully make sense to him. He explained that he and a friend had found it strange that no law enforcement officers had visited their neighborhood after Nancy disappeared. They had expected someone to arrive eventually, especially because they knew their camera had recorded the street and the footage was available. Yet no one ever asked to see it. What strikes people most about this development is not only the possible identification of a vehicle. Retired Detective Pat Brosnan analyzed the 2:36 a.m. clip and suggested that one of the vehicles resembles a Kia Soul based on the roof profile, the shape of the windows, and the distinctive vertical brake lights. The focus is also not solely on the back route that Daniel described as an ideal escape road for someone familiar with the area, nor simply on the fact that 12 vehicles traveled that road during those 6 hours. What stands out most is that a retired SWAT commander with decades of investigative experience reviewed the footage and stated that it represents the strongest public lead so far in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Even more striking is the fact that this potential lead had existed since the early hours of February 1st, stored quietly inside a Ring camera just 2.5 miles from the crime scene, waiting for someone with a badge to come and ask about it. For 27 days, no one did. But the discoveries in that neighborhood did not end with the Estratagoulias households. Reporters from Fox News Digital continued walking through nearby streets, knocking on additional doors, and speaking with other residents. During those conversations, they uncovered another piece of information that had not been collected by the Sheriff's Department. A neighbor named Aldenmere lives near the intersection that connects directly to Nancy Street. Weeks before Nancy disappeared during January, Aldenmere noticed a man walking through the area who did not appear to be someone simply out for exercise. The man was not wearing athletic clothing, was not listening to music through headphones, and was not carrying water. His hat was pulled low over his eyes, partially concealing his face, and he appeared younger than the typical person walking alone in that neighborhood at that time of day. Aldenmere later explained the moment clearly. The man looked younger than expected and simply did not resemble someone casually taking a walk. He mentioned the encounter to his husband at the time, but never contacted authorities because no one from the Sheriff's Department had come to his door asking if he had seen anything unusual. There's also a third neighbor involved in this emerging picture, a woman who asked not to be identified, out of concern for her children's safety, told Fox News Digital that on February 2nd, the day after Nancy disappeared, she observed an unfamiliar man standing near what appeared to be an abandoned vehicle at the intersection of Camino Juan Peño and Pedra Seca. She described the individual as roughly 1.75 meters tall, Hispanic, with a trimmed beard, wearing a silver bracelet, and smoking a cigarette. The vehicle beside him was a dark-colored SUV that looked to her like a Honda CR-V. 3 days later, the vehicle was no longer there, and she never saw anyone drive it away. 3 neighbors. 3 separate pieces of information. None of them had been collected by the sheriff's department during the first 27 days of the investigation. All 3 pieces of information eventually reached the FBI only after a journalist began knocking on doors in the area outside the official search perimeter. That perimeter was set at 2 miles by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The Stradiglius home sits 2.5 miles away. The difference amounts to roughly half a kilometer. Just 500 meters that kept the Ring camera footage outside the official evidence collection zone for nearly a month. That half-kilometer gap may seem small, but in legal terms, it is exactly the kind of oversight that defense attorneys examine carefully in high-profile cases. It represents the type of investigative gap that can later introduce reasonable doubt in front of a jury. It becomes the crack in an investigation that cannot easily be sealed with a press release. The sheriff's department responded to the Stradiglius footage with a public statement confirming that the video had now been incorporated in the investigation, although officials also added that it is still unclear whether the footage is directly relevant to the case. The FBI confirmed that it is aware of the material and that it has been added to the ongoing investigation, even though no one had collected it during those first 27 days. At the same time, another development occurred this week that has not yet been widely connected to the Ring camera footage. The FBI confirmed to NBC News that investigators have accumulated nearly 10,000 hours of video related to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Every minute of that footage must be reviewed in real time. While enhancement tools exist, each process that slows down or sharpens a video adds additional time to the analysis. 10,000 hours of footage watched in real time without acceleration tools would equal more than a year of continuous viewing without sleep. The FBI also confirmed that some operations connected to the search have been moved from Tucson to the Bureau's main office in Phoenix. This shift does not mean the investigation is closing or that all operations are leaving Tucson. Instead, it suggests that part of the investigative work is transitioning from field operations toward laboratory analysis and digital intelligence processing in Phoenix. There are 2 possible ways to interpret this shift. One possibility is that the investigation has entered a new stage in which on-site searches decrease while forensic examination and intelligence analysis increase. The second, less comfortable interpretation is that investigators may be exhausting the leads immediately available within Tucson. Former FBI Special Agent Lance Leeson commented on these developments while speaking to Fox 4 News. He explained that returning to a crime scene, bringing in additional investigators, collecting new samples for laboratory analysis, and allowing prosecutors to study the location are all routine parts of an investigation. However, he also noted that the removal of multiple bags of items from Nancy's house weeks after the crime is somewhat unusual. According to him, it would be extremely important to know what those items are and what evidentiary value they might carry. Those bags of evidence were removed during the 4th week of the investigation, just as the FBI began preparing to return the house to the family. Authorities indicated that the property could be released back to the family sometime over the weekend or early the following week. While these developments unfold, the movement of some operations to Phoenix, the massive backlog of video awaiting review, and the gradual return of Nancy's home to her family. Another moment occurred that drew attention. On Friday, February 27th, Nancy's daughter, Savannah Guthrie, posted a brief message on Instagram. It was not a long video and not an official statement. It was simply an Instagram story containing 2 short sentences. The first sentence read, "Please be the one who brings her home." The second sentence read, "The reward can be paid in cash." Those 2 words. In cash. Directly addressed a concern that sources connected to the investigation had mentioned earlier in the week. According to those sources, some individuals who may have information are hesitant to come forward because they fear that collecting a reward through a bank transfer would leave a digital trail that could expose them. They may want to speak with investigators but worry about being traced through financial records. By specifying that the reward could be paid in cash, anonymously without bank transfers or digital records, Savannah's message appeared designed to reassure anyone with information that their identity could remain hidden. She also provided the FBI tip line number, 1-800-CALLFBI, and directed people to submit information through the official portal at tips.fbi.gov. The combined reward being offered in the case now totals $122,500, and according to the message, it can be paid entirely in cash. As of now, Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 27 days. The Ring camera belonging to Elias and Daniel Stratiglius recorded 12 vehicles passing through the area during the night she disappeared. For nearly a month, no investigator collected that footage. It was reporters from Fox News Digital who first arrived at the door and obtained it. The footage is now in the possession of the FBI, and the retired SWAT commander who reviewed it has described it as the strongest public lead discovered so far in the case. Strongest. After 27 days, The evidence surfaced at a house located 2.5 miles away from the crime scene, just half a kilometer beyond the official search perimeter. A distance of only 500 meters ended up revealing information that has now become part of an investigation still searching for answers.